Or the screen's a lot of questions.
But my screen didn't change, actually.
Hello, everyone. I think we're live.
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. How's everyone doing? This is Larry and Xin from IoTeX. Rowland is going to be joining us very shortly. And today's session is all about, AMA and also a town hall to share some updates on, where IoTeX is as far as tech progress and some other exciting announcements that we have. But before we get started, for those that don't know Xin or myself, maybe we could start with some introduction. So Xin is our head of cryptography. Do you want to give a little background about yourself?
Okay, so yeah, basically my background is in cryptography, and mainly be responsible for the research and activities in the IoTeX. We're building the different core technology for our blockchain system, and also as well as both software and hardware development.
Mm-hmm. So Xin is going to have some very cool announcements for you related to AvoBoard and some other secure hardware that we're building in-house. That's all going to be coming over the next few months. We also have some great updates for you on Mainnet Beta. So as you know, we launched Mainnet Alpha in April, and it's been running very smoothly. Mainnet Beta kind of evolves or innovates upon Mainnet Alpha in the sense that we're introducing layer 2 chains and a very basic SDK so that people can start to build not only their own dApps, but also their own blockchains in the IoTeX network. But yeah, before we get there, just wanted to ask Xin how everything is going.
That's good.
It's been very busy lately.
Yeah, very busy.
Yeah. What have you been? What kind of things have you been focusing on specifically?
Specifically, we are mainly focusing on the layer 2 chains for the development, as well as integration for the AvoBoard and probably some cloud side. So IoT is a complicated system, so you need to talk with different type of standards and handle the different type of devices.
Right.
Especially when you're adding the privacy features or security features in the entire system. A lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Also, existing IoT development paradigm is quite different. They are more talking about cloud backend, so we need to move certain function to the chain side. Right. So that's a lot of work. You need to do the integration testing and adding the security related features.
Right. Definitely. And I think we'll spend some time now just talking more about AvoBoard, and when Rowling comes, we'll start to talk more about those side chains and Mainnet Beta and what's going on the blockchain side. But do you want to show people what we have so far as this prototype, AvoBoard? So for those that have not seen the pictures, this is our AvoBoard. It's a development board and an IoT gateway, but I'll let Xin kind of explain. And we've actually had some great questions related to AvoBoard from the community. So I think we can start to answer some of those now. And then the way this session is going to work is we'll take your live questions. We also have many pre-submitted questions that we have, and we'll go one by one through them. But if you have any questions at all throughout the session, feel free to leave it in the comments section, and we'll address those one by one at the end of this. But for people that are completely unfamiliar about AvoBoard and how it applies to IoTeX, do you want to explain what is AvoBoard, what is it meant to do, and kind of why it's different than a lot of the other things on the market today?
Okay, so let's start talking about the IoT device security. As you know, during the past years, you have seen a lot of data breaches for the IoT system. There is a root of cause for that. It's when you're building the IoT system, usually people didn't think about the security at the very beginning, because many IoT devices have large volume and low cost. If you add security features, will increase the budget for the projects. However, this kind of design mindset already caused a lot of problems when you really deploy the IoT system in practice. So that's the reason when we consider rebuild the IoT security at the very beginning, we thought we need to secure the device side in order to bootstrap the security for the entire systems. that came out of the idea to build an AvoBoard. That's what you have seen here. The AvoBoard integrate NXP Cortex-A53 processor. That's integrate with ARM Trustzone technology. So basically, you can think you have powerful security processors, have the cryptography sub-security systems, which can store your key security and complete all the security function need to be integrated into your system to secure your network and your data. So compared to the other, you already see this looks like a single board computer. That's correct. So the size of the board is like a single board computer. However, so this chip, they have a lot of security features. You can play while doing the development. Their development document is relatively complete, and also you can really use a lot of security features on this board. There's many other single board computer on the market. However, they focus on the different aspect. So this board is more focused on the IoT application. It's a low power processors, mainly target for the IoT gateway applications, and they don't have the for the video and other more fancy user interaction, those interface. However, they more focus on the network communication, how to accelerate the package processing during the IoT communications. I think that's unique features for this board. Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, it carries some similarities to some single board computers that the community may be aware of, like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, but it functions specifically as the two things you mentioned is being able to grab data from different sensors in a trusted way as an IoT gateway, and also doing some data processing at the edge is kind of this computation engine. But do you want us to talk about? So AvoBoard is really the key to a lot of kind of privacy and trusted computing in the IoTeX network. Can you kind of explain for beginners, how this device is used? Maybe explain the concept of secure hardware and how that is kind of like a trusted third party in our end-to-end flow.
For building the end-to-end security IoT applications, you have to consider the different phase for the data flow, starting from how a smaller device, how they collect the data, how they transmit the data to the gateway or directly to the cloud, depending on the different communication standards. How this data being securely stored on the cloud, or which part of the data should be kept in the blockchain. That's from the architecture point of view. For this board, we consider basically two major use cases. You can use this. One is you can use this one as a secure gateway. Basically, we have the extension port on this board, and you can plug in the different connectivity module on this board to talk with different IoT devices. For example, if you have Zigbee sensors or Z-Wave sensors or Thread protocol, for example, or if you put an NFC reader on this board, you can talk with an NFC tag. We leave the extension port quite open. So basically, combined with communication module, this one can serve as a secure IoT gateway. That's one use case for this board. The other one, you can also use this one as an edge computing device, which can help the application to process data security on the edge. It's more like a general purpose computing engine for this board. This is basically two different use cases.
Right. I mean, so one pre-submitted question that we got was around, given this is an IoT gateway, right? Two questions is kind of around what's the difference between a secure development board and a non-secure development board?
Okay.
And if you're kind of attaching non-secure devices to this secure gateway, how do you kind of transfer the secure elements over to those non-secure devices? Okay. So maybe starting with just a high-level concept around like what is secure hardware versus non-secure hardware.
So if you consider secure hardware, the most important thing is how you store the key securely. That's a root of trust in your system. When you like this type of the smaller security systems, you have the main processor, and which usually integrated with security subsystems. These security subsystems, they consider, for example, the crypto engine and the secure storage, which we use to storing the cryptography key. And the crypto engine will usually be used to accelerate crypto operations, like doing the signature, doing the encryption, this type of function. So also, for example, this chip, they also support the ARM trust zone, which is the security isolation technology on the operating system aspect. So they divide your operating system into two worlds, secure world and normal world. And when you're doing when you need to process the sensitive information for your system, you put a secure application and the secure world, and they can handle your information securely in that fashion.
Yeah.
So this one is a gateway. So eventually, to building a completely secure IoT system, you also need to add security on the device side. That's why we also have some trial for building a secure IoT device. Those devices are not very popular in the market yet, but there's a trend. So ARM already have the technology to enable like trust zone based security operating systems or trust zone technology enabled smaller devices on the device side. So that's we also have some trial for building this type of security devices.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this gateway here kind of introduces, you mentioned the concept of the secure world, right? Kind of the non-secure world interacting seamlessly with this kind of private environment that you can run your own processes. And yeah, I think as Xinqi mentioned, a lot of testing going on with connecting different types of devices. But one question we get quite a bit is say that I have, a lot of my smart home devices today that are kind of operating in this non-secure world. So how does AvoBoard kind of extend the footprint of the secure world and kind of bring new security features to non-secure devices? Or am I thinking about it the right way? How would you explain it?
Yeah, actually, it's a hard question. If you have the insecure device in your system, that will be the weakest link for your entire systems. Yeah, because there's no protection on the end device. The attacker probably can modify the data on those devices easily, because no security at all deploying on those smaller devices. So the gateway you can think is a first defense for your smart home devices. Some security features can be deployed on those devices to prevent hacker from the outside. However, if your device is captured by someone and the firmware has been modified and malicious software has been injected, that will be hard.
Right. So it doesn't really prevent that hacking from happening, but if you register these non-secure devices to AvoBoard, then you can kind of tell if those devices have been hacked in a way, right? To some extent.
Right.
Cool. Very cool. So yeah, I think as far as the roadmap for this goes, we had originally expected to open pre-orders for AvoBoard around now, but we kind of have a new focus of making AvoBoard more usable. Right now it's very raw. Definitely a lot of hardcore hardware developers can make great use of it, but we want to add a lot of middleware and some more application layer features so that people that purchase AvoBoard can start to develop right off the bat. Do you guys want to share more around kind of that renewed focus and why it's important that usability is a priority for us? And welcome, Ryan.
Sorry I was late. I was attending a meeting at San Francisco, which is like 1 hour drive from here, so that's why I'm late. I think for AvoBoard, definitely we have the first version already manufactured. We have like maybe 20, 30 each of like these boards all over our offices. Actually, like our engineers is working really hard on this one, trying to develop this SDK, trusted computing, even some like we call it TA, trusted apps on top of this, which is pretty fun, at least for me and also like people here. And I think the plan for this one is we will make like a probably like a 1.1 version of this hardware to make it like a more looks even cooler and has like a more functionalities a little bit and maybe a more like a production ready. Then we will start to try to open the pre-order for this one. Probably I think in 1 or 2 months. Yeah, I think we will try our best to get there. Yeah, we want deliver this board to the hands of yours. Yes.
Definitely. So yeah, I think a renewed focus on making this more developable by a larger audience. And I think that's directly from feedback from the community and also looking at some previous hardware launches from other companies. So we want to make sure that, it's not, plug and play, it's still meant to be a developer board, but those SDKs are very important, right?
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of SDKs, maybe we could talk about, we're talking about blockchain or AvoBoard SDKs. But maybe on the blockchain side as well. That's kind of coming with Mainnet Beta around a new SDK for sidechains. So, just give a rundown. We already have the SDK for web dApps that lets people build dApps on the IoTeX blockchain. A new SDK is coming for sidechains, which I'll have these guys explain. And then we're also working on some SDKs, software development kits, basically makes it easier to program and build things. So, for people that aren't necessarily too familiar with an SDK already, maybe explain what it is and what we're building as far as that across the IoTeX network.
Yeah, I think the word SDK actually has 2 kind of meanings under like a different context, right? So make sure this is like clarified first. So the first one, like the SDK means like you have like a wrapper for lots of interactions between your client side and the blockchain. So I think that is the part we already done and already released, like in different languages like JavaScript, Golang. I think Rust is also in progress, C++ as well. So we already have this thing down. So meaning like if you have like a one board like this, if you have a dApp on your phone, maybe on the web, which will have like a client, which actually use the SDK to talk with our blockchain very seamlessly. We already have like our IoTeX blockchain process like over 1 million transactions since launch, so which is like quite amazing actually. Thanks also to this SDK. So this is one. Another one like Larry I think mentioned a little bit more about is like this layer 2 chain SDK. So you can think it's like if you are familiar with Polkadot, then it's something like similar to Substrate. Right? Basically, we will provide you like a framework of the layer 2 chain. So you can just run this, maybe take a few parameters, plug in some functions, then boom, you will have like a blockchain running as a layer 2 chain for IoTeX blockchain. So that's basically like the goal we are going to have. But like the technical complexity here is relatively higher compared to the first type of SDK, but still like we are trying our best to at least have like a basic framework and also functionalities for the layer 2 chain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, SDKs, at least to me as a hardcore developer, it seems like something relatively simple, but it's really not, right? I was talking to actually the Lisk CEO, and they just launched their first SDK after 4 years. 4 years. Yeah. So it really takes time to, it's one thing to build a blockchain. It's another thing to build a framework for building blockchains and kind of cover all the bases. Kind of like how we designed the security architecture for AvoBoard. You need to exhaust all the attack vectors and things like that. I imagine it's the same for blockchain SDKs, right? Yeah,
I think I had a conversation with Max, the CEO of Lisk last year. So they are also having like a kind of SDK to enable sidechains. They call sidechains in their ecosystem, starting from like 3-4 years ago. They have at least like maybe 3-5 versions, but they already turned them down because something's wrong. Security issues, scalability issues, concerns. So this is definitely like a non-trivial kind of technical effort.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad they already launched.
Congrats to Lisk on that launch. It's great.
Right.
But yeah, I think we covered AvoBoard, we covered a little bit about the SDK, but I think the community is very interested in hearing over the next few months, right? What can we expect? Including Mainnet Beta. Maybe we could start there. What kind of functionalities are we preparing with Mainnet Beta?
So Mainnet Beta will have some like incremental improvement over like alpha. We have no intention to disrupt a lot of things. We want just to make it better in an incremental way, right? So I think there are some high level kind of features we're adding to this Mainnet Beta, which is already, some of them are already being deployed in production. One of them being the Larry mentioned about a Bayesian framework for a spin up a layer 2 chain. Hopefully that could be part of it. And another one is we're talking about to reduce a block period up to down to 5 seconds. For now, the block period is 10 seconds, meaning every block is produced every 10 seconds. And after observing, also collecting lots of data from the chain in the production, we feel pretty confident we can reduce it to 5, even 3 seconds to make users have a very good user experience. And I also want to mention one block we produce, IoTeX blockchain produce, has an instant finality, meaning so you don't have to wait 6 blocks, 12 blocks, whatever. A block is produced, then it's done, it's produced, it's finalized, right? So that's a second thing we're going to have. Another one I think, which is already in production, is expanding the footprint of delegates to 36. I think it's already enabled in production. We start with 12, right?
Yeah.
Then we gradually open to 24, 36. Yeah, and we even have a more ambitious plan to 100 delegates in the future.
Right.
Yeah, I think that this is something already there. And some small features might be very useful for delegates. One of them being they want to chunk the database into different files, so people can do this incremental backup, meaning they do not have to copy the entire file, could be several gigabytes, to another place. Rather, they can take the chunk of today, for example, just back up this one over there, back another one over there, incremental update. Update as well, backup. What else do we have? I think another thing is more around usability. How can we make this thing more tangible to users? We want to have the wallet ready, Explorer a better to use, mobile wallet-based wallet, and also the first type of SDK, which will we have integrations with B apps, whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
I think just looking back at the past 3 months since we launched Mainnet, it's really I think we've been moving launching different kind of things, but constantly improving on them. We launched the Explorer, we launched the wallets, and we launched different types of tools for delegates. But all of those things are being constantly improved. I remember when we first launched the wallet, didn't have a lot of features. Now it has claiming Vita, it has almost ledger connectivity, key stores, and things like that. So a lot of great progress on that side.
And also integration with other projects is also a kind of part of this beta launch. For example, we will have NUSD, which will be a first stable coin, actual token running on top of IoTeX network, right? So say if you want to use NUSD to purchase something, in VitaMart, maybe somewhere, do some gaming IoT devices, that would be a very good thing for you.
Right.
Another one is a Chainlink. They have this Oracle, although they already have they just have some data from the token price, crypto or something, right? But still very useful for us as well. So we are actually working with them as well to integrate Chainlink technology into IoTeX blockchain as well. Yeah.
So definitely a big focus on the usability aspect and the expanding the integration of our blockchain to others. What can you say about the hardware? So in addition to AvoBoard, what's the roadmap from here? We're focusing more on the middle,ware and on the application layer things. Can you share a little bit more about the future of AvoBoard and any other kind of devices that may be coming from IoTeX?
So besides our board, because it's an IoT gateway, like I mentioned before, so we are also creating some smaller devices which has security features inside. So those devices can be used for the certain IoT industry verticals. For example, the supply chain management, or the other security related IoT applications.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think before we dive into questions, maybe just one more philosophical question. So it's been a while since we've updated our roadmap, and I think every few months, the entire crypto scene kind of changes a lot, right? I guess first question is, what are your thoughts on where the crypto industry is trending, and then how we reacted to that, and kind of how does that translate into some of these, we're not really changing our roadmap, just kind of resequencing it, but what's led to that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Like, I think you see lots of things, they actually grow not in like a straight line, but they will go up and down, left and right. I think for crypto is the same actually. For example, last year, like people are so much like interested in like technology aspects of crypto. So lots of people are talking about sharding, even they are not understanding what sharding is, right? So, but they feel like proud to talk about things like that, consensus, or maybe some like layer 2 plasma, everything. But we feel like starting from maybe Q3 last year until now, the trend is more towards like the thinking is about how can I use blockchain, to improve my productivity, to do like better security, to help us to do something which generates profits or revenue, at least like mitigate some of the risk in the production, right? So people are, shift from here to like here. So I think that's a really good thing, right? Because like infra, like you can put 100 like a million engineers into infra doing 100 million type of different researches and make it better. But like which way we should go, right? Because if you think about evolutionary, there are like an impossible like a number of ways to go, but you want definitely like choose one of the ways that is optimal. So that's why like people looking at application use cases, scenarios, users. I think that's a really good thing, right? For us too. So we're looking into like the identity of like a device. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned about like we have this like a recent initiative. We started with another like a very big camera IP cam manufacturer. Like they're actually sold on Amazon, 10,000 cameras per month. That's pretty good. So what they want to do with us is basically back like this decentralized ID, which is issued on IoTeX blockchain into those cameras. So hopefully like you buy such a camera from like Amazon, and you will see like this is powered by IoTeX knowledge, right? So what can this DID do for this IP cam? I think the first thing is like it will give this camera like identity, so they will be able like talking with each other, even like talking with their owner, or maybe even like some people who like owner wants them to visit this camera for. So that's like basically it opens like an entire marketplace for this IP cam. So this is like a first thing like we're targeting is like an identity of the device. The second one is data, right? And once the data is produced, for example, by this IP cam, by some sensor, like you mentioned, this trusted tracker, how can we like monetize the data? Actually use the data in a certain way that's like realizes all potential value. So also, I think this is also super important, which will be backed by our trusted computing technology, right? So like people are more interested in these things, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Once we learn like what's the real user cases, we can shift back to here again and focus on like the real useful technologies.
Yeah, I feel like we're at the cusp of some very usable things, right? I think up until now it's been building the infrastructure and the research behind secure hardware and how it blends with blockchain. But now it's almost time to show what this technology can do. So I think with that we'll jump into some of your pre-submitted questions. If you have any live questions, you could be sure to put them in the comments and we'll go one by one. So this first question is kind of a similar theme to what we've been talking about, but given the market, it seems that all altcoins are going down in price, even with great partnerships, marketing and working products. So given that's the trend, how will IoTeX be different so that businesses can be sure that IoTeX is the right solution? So I guess what this question is asking is like, what makes IoTeX different from blockchain projects?
Yeah, I think I think we all know, right? Like the secondary market for the cryptocurrency for now is mostly hyped, right? Like all the projects you see, like they have a very high, kind of valuation, maybe market cap, which is because they have lots of hype. People have lots of hope into this project, which may not be true, right? So for IoTeX, no, actually, like the marketing is actually cooling down a little bit. So the hype is kind of like went away. And that's why all the alpha coins are actually just like sinking down very rapidly in the past like 1 or 2 quarters. But that's a good thing, I feel like, right? It's basically like a filtering process. Like the project that gets down here will probably just die out. If there is nothing real they can show for, they will die out. But for us, it's very different. Like we have very concrete, like use cases and applications of this blockchain, like the one I mentioned about this DOID, right? Think about it. So if every 1 month there are like a 10K, 10,000 such of cameras gets deployed to users' home, like stored everywhere, then 1 year is almost like maybe 1 million, right? So the devices. If all of these devices bury like a IoTeX identity on top of this, this will be like a huge deal, right? In terms of future, how they can, talking with each other, open up other applications. So we do have like a lot of concrete use cases.
Right.
And this camera is just one of them. Actually, I was talking with other manufacturers as well. They do have such like a pain point. For example, they are like a device manufacturer. They know how to do the phone. They know how to generate things like this, right? But they have no idea how to, have like a software, like the backend, even like the app, user interface for their users to like make a better use of their product, right? So I think like we are in a very sweet spot. Is we built the infra already there. Of course, it will improve as time goes by, and we are in talking with these people, also maybe work with them right now, trying to convince them to use our infra to solve their problem.
Right.
So we are in a very good position right now.
I think so too.
I'm like 100% about confident about like AvoTeX token actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Xinxin, on your perspective, in the just broader blockchain IoT space, maybe share a little bit about what's going on and how we plan to keep on differentiating ourselves from what other folks are doing.
Yeah. So IoT industry is quite different. You see a lot of big companies. They are traditional hardware manufacturers. They are very many of those companies. They are very interested in the blockchain technology. They have internal team to explore how this technology can be used for their business. Especially for the past 1 or 2 years, a lot of trials within the big corporations. I think particularly for this year, I think it's a good point for starting building the real applications because people gradually understand what blockchain can bring to your system, how they can replace some of components in their existing solution to provide the better features for their users, and how to reduce the cost for the certain applications. I think that's a good sign, especially when you combine the blockchain and IoT. The other thing I want to mention is people now the people understand more for the blockchain technology. For the IoT context, blockchain actually can solve the certain issues, for example, interoperability, and also more efficient device management, and can efficiently prevent some certain attacks in terms of the large-scale IoT systems. I think all those features people gradually understand how to integrate the blockchain into their existing solution. This is like the current trend for the IoT and the blockchain combinations. For the IoTeX, we have a lot of collaborations with different industry partners. We understand the requirement from each other, and we also create the new solutions based on our platform to fit their certain needs. How to use our technology to combine with what they already built to create new features.
Right, definitely. So yeah, I think as we start to launch more of these, devices and hardware, and also new blockchain capabilities, I think we'll definitely have more materials as far as like how this is unique to the industry. But I think as Rowland mentioned, a lot of things that we work on from here on out, right? Like up until this point, admittedly, it's kind of we are launching things that other networks have launched in the past, with the mainnets and SDKs and blockchain. But now we're getting to the point where it's kind of everything from here on out is uncharted territory in a lot of ways, right? Maybe you guys explain that path and what's difficult about it. I'm sure it's like a lot of different approaches to take, but how do you kind of go about picking the right direction as far as maybe starting from the research side, and then how does that translate to the implementation side?
Yeah, from research side, actually the blockchain is a new technology, as we all realized. There are a lot of problems or challenges even within blockchain system itself. That's why a lot of activities happened in the last years. People focus on solve the challenges within the each component within the blockchain systems. I think that that's the correct way. People starting it's a new platform, new technology. People need to solve the certain challenge within these systems. Now a lot of problems have been solved. I think for the blockchain as a backend technology. Now it's a good time to think about how to use this technology to build the entire systems. And how to use unique features provided by the blockchain, and use these unique features to enable the new use case which have been developed before. This I think is a correct way to explore the new technology and gradually transit to how to build the new use case with unique features provided by this technology. We also try a lot of different angles. And we learn from the industry partners how they want to do how they want to use this for building their use cases. So I think the mutual, a lot of interactions between both sides. I think that's way.
Yeah. What about on the blockchain side, Rahul?
Yeah, I want to talk about like a strategy side, right? So lots of blockchains, public blockchains, they are too broad. They want to do everything, right? I want DeFi, gaming, IoT, whatever, supply chain finance, everything. But I feel like it's impossible, right? Like usually, like the blockchain team is not too big compared to big companies, very, very small. And also, like Xinjie mentioned, blockchains are very back-end technology. So you're here, right? So like your use case, maybe you are here. There is a huge gap in between. So who's going to fill this gap for you? No one else but yourself. So that's why I feel like the more like we are working on this thing, like the more we are feeling like we have to like target a very vertical area, like a probably like a niche, like an IP camp for first. Then blockchain will definitely be like the cornerstone, maybe the foundation of this like a tech stack. But still, you will put in like a little bit some things in the middle. For example, maybe I don't know, some cloud services for recording video, some other things like an app, to tokenize the entire sharing economy, things like that. You would have to like fill in all this big. Then you can reach like a critical mass about enabling blockchain technology for this IPCAN use case. This will be like a very huge success use case. Then you're talking about, expand this a little bit, probably not just limited to IPCAN, can also, to some other devices as well.
Right.
So I think that's the strategy we are taking right now.
That's really interesting. So what you're saying is blockchain does not necessarily even have to be the dominant technology in a lot of these products that we're building. It's almost like the as a trusted technology, it's almost like the orchestrator of many different types of technologies on the hardware side, on the traditional cloud side, and even on the software firmware side.
Right. Think about the phone, right? It's similar, right? Like if I give you like a PCB board with a bunch of chips on it, there's no way you're going to pay like $1,000 for this phone, right? But if I have like a nice, operating system running on top of this, you have like hundreds of D apps which can help improve your life, make you happier, for example, right? Then you're going to pay for $1,000 for this thing. I think it's the same. Like a blockchain is like a PCB board chips for this phone, but for getting to the real users, we have to do this step by step.
Yeah. I think that's where the strength of the team comes into play, because we all come from. I mean, some of us have been you guys have been in the blockchain industry for a long time, but like some of the other team is still very fresh as far as how they approach different parts of the tech stack. So hopefully we'll see some very cool stuff coming from that. This next question is more around AvoBoard. So how many AvoBoards are you planning to make, and what types of companies are interested? So maybe you guys can chat about kind of the distribution plan for this, starting with the pre-sale and then kind of where that pre-sale will evolve to.
So actually, for the first batch, we may have tens of those. This one is mainly first batch mainly target for the developers. Because we open almost all the features on this board. They have all the comprehensive the port. You can the PCIe, the MSATA, the different type of the interface we already unlock on this board. Later on for the different IoT verticals, we probably need to customize this board after we talk with more industry partners. Maybe this one is more developer oriented board.
Right.
Later on we may need to do more customization and remove some port on this board to suit for the certain applications. I think that's a plan for distributing this board.
Yeah, I think like this concept of, I mean, I wouldn't call this like open source hardware. I mean, but it is hardware based on open source technology to try to make it we're trying to have people use it as like an open source tool, right? But for people that are not familiar with hardware development, right? Like software is very much you launch it and you break it until you fix it kind of approach. But with hardware, there's a lot of things that you need to have ready before you even launch the product. You can't bring it back and recall all of them, fix it, and then send it back out. Can you talk to us a little bit about both like the kind of the challenges of creating something like this?
That's why hardware development cycle is usually a little bit long. We need to do a lot of testing, a lot of iterations with manufacturer to collect to test the issues on the hardware side. It's already a lot of effort to make it reliable once user get it. Also, besides the hardware design and the testing, a lot of work need to be done to build firmware to make to unlock the security functions and other functions on this board. Later on, need to consider how user can create application relatively easier. Because hardware development is quite different, especially when you involve the security functions. We have a lot of preparation need to do. For example, to inject the key security on the hardware, and how to we need to have a more solid security architecture to prevent all type of the threat models we thought about.
Definitely. Yeah, and I guess on the adoption side and around the companies that are interested in technologies like this, Ron, you want to talk a little bit about some of the conversations you've had with enterprises or not necessarily just enterprises, but just developers. And I think, maybe I could share a little bit about, I took a trip to Europe last week and kind of showed people AvoBoard in person. I think just having something tangible in front of them makes people really understand, okay, I see this as maybe, it can operate as a router or like as a gateway, and it can enable private data storage. And that's kind of the use case that they're ready to start using today. You don't have to talk about very, very complicated machine learning on the blockchain. It's just, I can have a private data store on a decentralized infrastructure. How does that kind of translate to the enterprise world as far as like the way we pitch this to different folks?
I think it really based on like the use case, right? If you want to use this as an IoT gateway, for example, like I think one of the co-founders, Kevin, he's in China. Actually, he's in talking with China Mobile IoT, which is our partner. Actually, they are very interested in this, like this one to serve as like an IoT gateway. Because like the China Mobile IoT, they have like a bunch of IoT devices, no matter what, right? And they do need like a kind of a centralized hub for like connecting those IoT devices in like a certain range, maybe 2 kilometers, whatever. So like the pitch point to like the China Mobile is basically you guys can have this one, maybe have some software developed on top of this one, have a nice box around it, have some antennas, then just place this one at a very critical point so it can coordinate with your no matter light bulbs, TV, computer, whatever robots they have.
They're introducing that secure world into their existing state.
In a very secure way. I think that's one use case, right?
Yeah.
And another one, I think for Larry and me, we have this meeting with some big guys from like Wall Street financial institutions. They were so interested in like this, like a trusted computing for sharing of like some financial informations among different parties, maybe 3-4 of them. But like the concerns right now is they do not want to give out data just for free, right? They have the concern like other people will take advantage of their shared data and do something back to themselves. Like the one we talk about with them is basically we will have some devices for you guys. So probably you have like maybe 3 people from 3 companies, maybe sitting down in one room, have this one deployed in your middle. Once the software, everything's verified, you guys feel comfortable to share data with the device. So this becomes like a this becomes like a how to say that,
central.
Central
Yeah,
point for lots of data.
Yeah.
But still, like the data is encrypted, no one can see it, right? The board still can see it, but it will destroy everything after like this transaction is done.
Yeah.
So it's safe for everyone.
Yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of analogies as to how to explain kind of what this secure world that's introduced by secure hardware is, and I think a good way to characterize it maybe is, you know, as a trusted third party, right? Kind of redefining what trusted third parties are. Like today, a lot of the corporations we assume are trusted third parties, but they're not so trustworthy after all these data breaches and selling of customer data. But this thing is kind of, it takes instructions, it operates things, it reads its environment, and there's no way to really, there's no manual error or, you know, manipulation opportunities. So just giving people the, kind of introducing them to the fact that you can trust this hardware to do what you need. And you think about like the blockchain consensus, right? Like all these delegate groups are kind of proxies for trusted third parties in a lot of ways. Trying to ensure that having a lot of people, you know, having stake in the network and, you know, following the protocol is their way of guaranteeing that this subset of delegates is trusted. But there's also there's different ways of ensuring trust, right? And one of them is definitely through this secure hardware piece. So we'll look out for more explanations on that. This next question is around IoTeX fundraising. So what kind of runway does IoTeX have in terms of funding? And are there any other plans for future funding rounds in the future?
Yeah, I think for now, our runway is pretty good. We have at least 3 years of runway. So if the BTC price goes up, we will even have a little bit more. Like our type of like asset we're having right now is like a fiat plus BTC. So we're all good on the funding side for now. In terms of next round of fundraising, yes, we are considering about that. It's not too much about money. Of course, money matters, right? But it's more about how can we even engage more with those device manufacturers and, you know, IoT vendors in the future, because we will need like their strategic resources to have our technologies embedded into their products, right? So that's a hard part. So that's why we will need some type of, you know, partnership, kind of work together opportunities with them. I think fundraising is a very good way to, like, you know, kind of have them on board, you know, to work with them very closely, because our interest is aligned in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So not financial fundraising, but more kind of strategic partner fundraising. Right. Cool. Yeah. So this next question is around. You just had an announcement. It was actually Rowland's birthday 2 days ago, and he got some great news around, you know, some work that you guys did in your PhD years. And I think also after around, you know, one of the standards you guys helped develop was adopted by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Do you guys want to share a little bit about that? And this question is specifically around, you know, whether that wage technology will be standardized by NIST or whether that's still, you know, it's kind of like a RFP process where they're still evaluating.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, actually. I would like to give some context on this one. So basically, it needs to have a standard, you know, kind of crypto primitives for every industry, right? For example, like asymmetric ciphers, you have AES, right? Public key, they have RSA. You know, hash functions, they have SHA-3, which is closed recently. So the purpose to have a standard is like to give instruction to, you know, service provider, like a software, you know, developer, device manufacturer, like when you do this thing, like please use this one. So because all the other people use the same algorithm of the protocol, so it will be much easier for them to work together, right? So that's a purpose to have a standard. And NIST is the one who's like in charge of all the standards here. So they actually standardize how long like a meter is, a feet is, right? Like what's unit for time, what's unit for everything. So basically crypto is part of this. So they started this like call for lightweight crypto primitive last year. I think around Q2, because they are seeing more and more devices, constrained device, IoT device, smart devices, where like the traditional crypto primitive cannot be running on top of them. For example, maybe RSA is too slow, AES is not, you know, fast enough. So they will need like some algorithm which is like a more neat and also more lightweight, and also at the same time as secure as other algorithm. right? So they just have this colorful kind of lightweight cryptography starting from last year. So like the work, Xinyi and I, and also like our supervisor, Professor Gong, who is also the technology advisor for IoTeX, we did back like a few years ago is a stream cipher called WG. Now it's called Wage. So which is based on like a very solid mathematic transform. Professor Gong and another Professor Welch, right? Actually, they developed them maybe 10 years ago. It's a very nice kind of Fourier transform type of transform, right, over finite fields. So like the entire idea is trying to design a stream cipher using this like a very beautiful and also lightweight transform to make it secure. We have done lots of work for this one, including search for the base transform over different finite fields, right? Implement those things on top of hardware, see how it goes, and maybe design some authentication encryption protocols using those primitives to see how it works in a real world environment. What else we done? Cryptanalysis, of course, right? Trying to break the cipher somehow, right? I think we passed this like a very restricted process in order to get here today. All the results shows like this is a very good lightweight stream cipher, and it's actually gets into the NIST's attention. I think for now still they have like a few candidates there, so they will select maybe one or two.
Yeah, one
of them, to be standardized. But I would think like lots of people actually from the academic area, they think like we have a very high potential here. Yeah, so that's a story.
Yeah, definitely. And the second part of this question is like, if confirmed, what are the implications for IoTeX? Like, I think a lot of the things you said just in that last part around like, trying out and testing and crypto analysis, very reminiscent of what we're going through today, just at the company, right? All these different, state-of-the-art things that we're building kind of goes through that same process. But yeah, going back to the wage thing. What are the implications for IoTeX if it gets accepted?
I think that will be very good because the NIST, once they standards the certain algorithm, the industry partners, especially for the IoT industries, all those device manufacturers, they will start picking up the algorithm standard by NIST. They will build the dedicated crypto processors for that to accelerate the operations. Because we all IoTeX, we Roland and me are quite familiar with entire algorithm suite, so we can quickly adopt it into, for example, integrate some of our IoT products.
And also we do have the plan, to build the entire authentication authorization process protocols around which for IoTeX blockchain. That means if this thing is like a standardized, then all the device, whatever device, it will have this algorithms by default, which will be like a natural kind of client to IoTeX blockchain. So that's very interesting, I think. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Definitely. So stay tuned for more on that wage discussion. This next question is around mobile wallets. What's the release date for the mobile wallet? And I think specifically for Android, we already have a beta version that some of our close contacts and ambassadors are testing out, and I believe also an iOS version is coming soon. Oh, there it is.
Not sure if you guys can see it.
Yeah,
but we do have the Android version up and running.
Yeah,
it's internal testing right now, so they want to make sure everything is fully polished out before release the product to the public.
Yeah, so this specifically is called IoPay. And it's a wallet that lets you claim Vita and a lot of other features. I guess while we're talking about some of these off-chain kind of things, or I guess IoTeX products, what else have you been working on? Like every time I revisit the member.iotex.io page, it's always looking better and different, and also the Explorer. So it seems like even though we don't announce those updates, a lot of work is being done. Can you guys kind of summarize that work?
Yeah, like I said, lots of incremental works here. So for example, like the member, like the voting portal, we want it more secure and also more decentralized. So that's why engineers, they implement migrate all the data store onto the blockchain. So they never use database, right? So they just use blockchain as a database. So that's very interesting. And also they implement this like a portal, meaning like people can maybe do a self-service kind of thing to start like a poll for like for example, like so what do you like for the block period? Maybe 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 second, right? Type of poll. So like people who stake IoTeX can participate in this type of survey and have like the results published on the blockchain. So those are type of things we're doing. Another one we are actually working on internally is trying to make this reward distribution process more smoothly for delegates, because some of them, are not from a technology background, so they don't know how, at least not in a smooth way. So we have this automatic, reward distribution system already built up, and some delegates are actually trying it out. So they never have to, worry about how often should I maybe send out to my voters, how often should I do this, do that. They just like a link to our system, and our system is just in charge of everything, right? Explorer is another example. We want to make it first like looks better, and also have like a provide more useful information in terms of some analytic data. So that's why we have someone who's working really hard on the analytic side, trying to figure out what is going on the chain, right? How many transactions, how many, how many DFs, how secure the chain is, and so on. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, so we're always having new releases on all these kind of products and tools, and a lot of things also going on with Vita that we'll continue to announce. And those are the last kind of questions we have, but we also wanted to mention one update regarding Delegate of the Month voting, which we think is a very important new initiative. So basically the concept is trying to better connect community, foundation, and delegates. So a lot of the things that foundation does, community knows about it, delegates know about it, but we also want to have the same kind of free information flow between delegates and the community. So one thing especially was we want community to recognize delegates that have contributed, whether it's development work or marketing work or business relations for IoTeX. So we have kind of a revote via smart contracts starting, I think, later today. So yeah, definitely encourage all the community to take a look at all the great things our delegates have contributed, whether that's creating new Python libraries or different types of wallets, explorers, educational materials, and more. So hopefully, kind of gamifying this system will one, encourage delegates to contribute more, but we do need your help to recognize what their contributions are and also encourage them to build more and more things. So stay tuned for that news. And I think to close around one overarching question that we've heard is we talked about price a little bit for altcoins, and we always kind of mentioned that the price doesn't necessarily reflect the progress going on. But I guess how would you guys characterize that, right? It's like with all these new things that are happening today, how would you guys kind of explain the potential of what's going on in IoTeX even behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think like IoTeX is probably the most undervalued project in the market right now, right? In terms of price. I'm personally like investing in IoTeX as well, right? Because I feel like it's pretty much undervalued. Given like the technical progress, the product progress, also like the application, like the IP can in the IoT area, I feel like I'm pretty confident it's very undervalued.
Yeah, I think we're definitely doing a lot of things that many projects aren't.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that overall that catches up once we have some tangible users of what we're I think a lot of the users of our products and technology are still a little behind the scenes, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to announce some of those things. So, Xinxin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we are actually on a very good track. So we are focusing on how to use our platform to build a real use case for our potential customers.
Right.
I think it's a good sign. That's very important to make blockchain be the really useful technology in the real world.
Yeah.
I think the price side will be. I'm also very confident the price side will be goes up later on.
Yeah, not financial advice.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer, not financial advice.
But yeah, I mean, I think I'm also feeling very positive. Just showing some of these concepts. Whether we haven't been able to explain them fully just for confidentiality reasons, but explaining some of these state of the art things to companies. It takes some time for them to digest, but you can tell immediately that everyone sees value in it. So yeah, as we kind of climb through a lot of these new releases, expect a lot of also usage of the things that we're talking about in the future. So, want to say thank you guys for spending the past hour with us. And thank you to Ralin and Xinxin for taking time out of their busy day. Any final thoughts?
No, I think we're all good. Just back to work. Too many things to do.
Definitely. Well, yeah, thanks everyone. And we'll have another AMA probably in the next few weeks. Until then, keep up to date with us on Telegram and make sure to vote for Delegate of the Month starting later today. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.